promised, we are back with Michael Scotto of HoopsHype. Michael, nice to meet you in person, man, and appreciate you hopping on the show.
Oh, my pleasure, brother. Anytime. Thank you for having me and your support of my work. Much appreciate it.
Of course, man. You know, we were talking yesterday about some of your baseball memories out there in New York. So it's been a lot of fun, man. Sure. As far as Kuminga is concerned, I've been talking to a lot of people about it, and the question of, obviously we know what he wants, but I feel like there's a discretion between how he views himself, how the Warriors view him, and how other teams view him. Do you think there's kind of a question mark as to, hey, we're going to go get this guy? Because if somebody thought he was going to be a star, I feel like we'd know. And I don't know how many people, I think a lot of people think he's got a high ceiling, but there's a lot of guys like that.
I think the biggest thing with Jonathan Kuminga, Allen, is that people view maybe a little bit of untapped potential there. And it's about what is the price point of two things, where he is now and where a team thinks that he can go. So right now, let's say, for example, he ends up back with Golden State, okay? If he ends up back on Golden State, I think what you have to look for are a couple of things. Number one, maybe not a long-term deal, maybe something like 3 years or 4 at most, but I would say maybe more, even 3. And then I would say to you, I think an important aspect of any trade there would be a potential trade kicker and a percentage on that. And I say that because right now, if the market doesn't dictate what he wants, ultimately, you can use that trade kicker to get back some of that money you feel like you may not be able to get at this point in the market, given the teams that just don't have a lot of cap space. And with him, you'd have to be doing a sign and trade. So, and I mean, look, Brooklyn, I don't see, just because I know some people maybe have mentioned Brooklyn, I don't see that ultimately from my sources and whatnot. So I think that narrows it down a bit. Big picture, there's been talk about you guys in Sacramento for sure. But I also think if that's going to happen, well, there's got to be a moving of parts here, whether it's a Malik Monk to DeMar DeRozan, even if it's not to Golden State, somewhere like a 3-team deal. So there's a lot of variables to whether Jonathan Kuminga can go to Sacramento or anywhere. So ultimately, there is a decent chance that he could stay in Golden State, get a deal that you can potentially look to flip going into the February trade deadline or possibly even a little bit before that. But essentially, that's kind of where that situation is right now, Alan.
I'm talking to Michael Scotto of HoopsHype. Do you feel like if they waited for December, right, and they do the deal, the 3-year deal, and they waited for December, how many more teams do you think would be interested in Jonathan Kuminga if the Warriors just waited? Because a lot of people were saying, hey, in the leverage conversation, if you're the Kings, if you really want Kuminga, you can sign. Obviously, the Warriors are in a tough spot with the sign and trade and everything like that, but you're the only one in line. And if you wait for December, there might be other teams that are now interested because it's just a lot cleaner.
Well, not only that, but I also think injury-wise, what if something comes up and a team's like, we need this guy to fill a void?
Right.
I get that aspect of it, but ultimately then you also lose a little bit of control in terms of if you're not going to do a sign and trade now, you're going to lose control of kind of what the deal looks like.
Right.
And Kuminga's camp is going to have to look out for itself with the hope of there being a sign and trade and obviously like the trade kicker. But big picture to me, I'm aligned kind of with your thinking in that regard. But we'll see. Time will tell. If he's on Golden State, I think the plan obviously from his side would be to try to go somewhere else within the season before the deadline if he ultimately remains.
They're making sure they take care of the backup center situation with Drew Eubanks. Scott Perry was on the broadcast in the first game that the Kings had. He said, we're still looking for a point guard. That name, Agent Zero, Russell Westbrook, keeps getting brought up. What do you think about Russell Westbrook? And have you heard anything about the Kings' interest level and maybe other teams' interest level?
It's funny when you said Agent Zero, the first person that came to mind was Gilbert Arenas.
Me too. But I don't know why I did that.
It's all good. No, it's all good. But big picture, like I feel like with Russ, essentially a lot of this stuff is kind of status quo. I think Bradley Beal's going to start to move the market a little bit. Hopefully, I'll say that teams I think are waiting for Bradley Beal to move the market. Yeah. Obviously, if you talk to people on the concourse here, the prevailing thought remains that Bradley Beal will end up with the Los Angeles Clippers. So then after that, I think then you kind of move from there. Where does Chris Paul go? Does Chris Paul have a return back to the Clippers where he's wanted to be close to LA, close to his family? And that would, I think, give him a decent chance to compete. So certainly something to keep an eye on there. And then after that, as far as Russ and some of these other free agents, then I think the dominoes start to fall. Obviously, Sacramento's been linked heavily to him the most. And so I think ultimately, that's where you'd have to look initially if there was going to be something. Yeah. And it was interesting, certainly, how he ended in Denver to get to this point. So usually when you're going to decline an option, you'd almost think like something was lined up, but we're still here at this point. Yeah. And, it's not just Russell Westbrook who's being brought up. They're kind of other free agents as well. And not just free agents. I mean, I guess we're kind of burying the lead out here, but LeBron James with four teams, one of those teams being the Warriors, obviously the Clippers, the Mavericks being a bit of a surprise. Do you think there's anything that could actually happen? I mean, a lot of people are saying, well, if you wanted to be moved, you just wouldn't have taken the option. Maybe some posturing happening on both sides, but could that affect the market anywhere? I don't know if the player option has anything to do with it, Allen. I'll be quite honest with you. Yeah. I think when you could take $50+ million, you take it. Yeah. And then you figure it out. Yeah. The whole thing about the NBA is you get your money while you can, and then you go from there and you figure it out. Same thing, kind of like what we would see potentially with Jonathan Kuminga, for example, as we touched on. But when it comes to LeBron, I think some of this is a little bit speculative. I think all the stuff in the air right now. If you're the Lakers, and you got LeBron and Luka, and you can still compete and have a good team. Austin Reeves is your third guy. DeAndre Ayton's going to be the X factor for them. Now as a starting center. LeBron's never been traded. Yeah. So if there was going to be a time now in the twilight of his career, whether he's got a year left or more or whatever, you'd have to see. But I mean, by all accounts, he's enjoyed LA, and he opted into that for a reason. Before we get you out of here, talking to Michael Scotto of HoopsHype, thank you for joining us, Mike, as always. Before we get you out of here, any names in general that maybe, I know it's been a quieter summer league, but any names in general that you heard come up that maybe you previously hadn't heard before coming out to the desert? For like a trade or free agency? What's on your mind? Anything like that. No, I got to tell you, no. And I mean, the market's been a little bit dry as the desert, right? Because going into free agency, it wasn't a robust list. With all due respect to the guys that are on the market compared to years past, And I thought when John Horst said the other day that Miles Turner was the #1 free agent, it's like, well, maybe a realistically available guys, but in that regard, it's like, okay, well, that to me, while he's still a good player in his prime, the ceiling of the free agency class is not what it had been in years past. And just when you look at trade talk and stuff out here, for the most part, it's still been a little relatively quiet. Yeah. So I just think if anything would move the needle, it would be a Kuminga sign and trade. But I also feel like, Allen, if that was going to materialize, I would almost think like it would have happened by now. Not to say that it won't, but as you said, there's got to be some reservations a little bit here, or else this would have got done already by now. Yeah, and I mean, look, the whole conversation of what was it supposed to be craziest NBA offseason? I mean, it had its moments. It had a chance. I think it had a chance in terms of potential trade stuff, but I don't know. I don't know how much it like really moved the needle like that in terms of that. Look, I get it. Sometimes there's hype, right? But reality and hype and substance are three different things, and that's why we're here right now. And like I said, we're drier than the Grand Canyon right now. Before we get you out of here, we talked a little bit about this on the concourse yesterday, but Malik Monk and the off guard conundrum that a lot of these off guards are dealing with. Do you think that there is a
a value concern with, I won't say with Malik Monk, but with players like Malik Monk, who you're not a pure point guard. Maybe your defense isn't where we'd like it, but you can get buckets. You know what I mean? You can cook when you need to cook. Do you think that the league is saying we don't really value that type of player the same? The Anthony Simons thing happening in Boston.
Cam Thomas, you can make the same case. I mean, Cam's in restricted free agency, but when you're talking about the ilk of the player and the prototype as a scoring guard, and that's the main focus. Yeah, I certainly think you're seeing a little bit of a trend. Shooters still seem to get a decent amount of money. Right. Like Luke Kennard got a decent amount of money, I thought. You know, Duncan Robinson. Yep. Still got a pretty good deal. Right. And so to me, shooting has always maintained. I think the scoring guards, the days of like the Lou Williams era, where Jamal Crawford, guys that come off the bench, light it up like Times Square on New Year's Eve, but their efficiency is a little bit questioned. They have been devalued, to your point. I would agree with that assessment, Alan. I would.
Michael A. Scotto, thank you so much for joining us, man. It was good meeting you in person.
My pleasure.
We'll definitely do it again. When I'm out in New York, we'll definitely link up, and safe travels back whenever that is. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, brother. My pleasure.
When we return, we have one more segment to close.